Mark and Linda Johnson lived in a small town in Ohio. They met in college, where both studied journalism. Their relationship began with friendship, which gradually grew into something more. After 5 years of dating, they got married, and the first years of their marriage were filled with happiness, passion, and mutual understanding. They dreamed of children, travels, and growing old together. But after 7 years of marriage, something began to change. Their intimate life, which had once been a source of joy and closeness, became routine. They began to notice that they no longer enjoyed each other. Conversations about their problems in the bedroom became frequent, but neither of them knew how to fix the situation. Mark suggested seeing a sex therapist, but Linda was too embarrassed to discuss such intimate details with a stranger. One evening, after another unsuccessful intimate experience, Linda suggested something radical. "Mark, what if we try something new? Maybe a swinger party. I've heard it helps couples who face similar problems." Mark was shocked but intrigued. He thought about Linda's proposal for a long time and eventually agreed. They began searching for information online, reading forums and reviews from people who had tried such things. After a few weeks, they found a swinger club in a nearby town that hosted private parties for couples. The night of the party arrived. Mark and Linda were nervous but decided not to back out. They dressed in their best outfits and headed to the club. On the way, they were silent, each lost in their own thoughts. Linda was afraid they would regret their decision, while Mark worried he wouldn't be able to handle jealousy. When they arrived, a security guard checked their invitation. Inside the club, the atmosphere was one of freedom and liberation. Couples and singles mingled, danced, and flirted. Mark and Linda felt out of place but decided to stay. They started by simply observing what was happening. Gradually, they began to relax and even struck up a conversation with another couple who were also attending such a party for the first time. However, when it came to more intimate moments, Mark and Linda felt uncomfortable and decided to leave. On the way back, they discussed their feelings. Linda admitted that she had been curious but wasn't ready for such radical changes. Mark agreed, but deep down, he felt their relationship needed something more. A few weeks after the party, Mark began looking for alternative options. He found a website where people sought partners for swinger encounters. There, he met a girl named Jessica. She was young, beautiful, and seemingly experienced in such matters. They started chatting, and soon Mark suggested meeting in person. Linda was initially against it, but after much persuasion, she agreed. They arranged to meet Jessica at a hotel. The evening began with cocktails and light conversation. Jessica was charming and confident, which made Mark and Linda feel more at ease. However, when things turned intimate, something felt off. Jessica behaved strangely, and Mark began to suspect she might be underage. He tried to stop what was happening, but it was too late. The next day, Mark and Linda received shocking news. Jessica had filed a police report, accusing them of sexual assault. It turned out she was only 17 years old and had used fake documents to appear older. An investigation began. Mark and Linda were horrified. They tried to prove they hadn't known Jessica's real age, but the evidence was against them. Jessica claimed they had known her age and had proceeded knowingly. The case gained widespread media attention. Mark and Linda were condemned by everyone, including their friends and family. They tried to find a lawyer, but no one wanted to take on such a scandalous case. The trial lasted several months. Mark and Linda were on the verge of a nervous breakdown. In the end, Mark was found guilty and sentenced to 5 years in prison. Linda was acquitted, but her life was shattered. She lost her job, her friends, and her faith in herself. Mark served his sentence in prison, where he spent a lot of time reflecting on his mistakes. He wrote letters to Linda, but she didn't respond. Their marriage, which had once seemed perfect, was destroyed. Linda moved to another city to start over. She never remarried and couldn't bring herself to trust men again. Jessica, as it later turned out, was part of a group of scammers who lured people into traps to blackmail them. However, by the time this came to light, it was too late. While Mark was in prison, Linda tried to rebuild her life. She moved to Chicago, where she got a job at a small local newspaper. However, her past haunted her. At night, she had nightmares about Mark, Jessica, and that fateful night at the hotel. Linda began seeing a therapist to cope with the trauma. One day, while browsing the news online, Linda came across an article about a group of scammers who specialized in blackmail and extortion. The article mentioned a girl named Jessica, who was part of the group. Linda realized it was the same Jessica who had ruined her life. She decided to learn more. Linda began her own investigation. She contacted the journalist who wrote the article and learned that the scammers had been arrested, but Jessica had managed to avoid punishment. She was in hiding, and her whereabouts were unknown. Linda felt she had to find her to get answers. Linda started searching for Jessica on social media. She created a fake account and began adding people who might know Jessica. After a few weeks, she found a girl who was friends with Jessica. Linda introduced herself as a former classmate and asked how to contact Jessica. A few days later, Linda received a message from Jessica herself. They agreed to meet at a cafe in a Chicago suburb. Linda was nervous but decided to go. She wanted to understand why Jessica had destroyed her life. When they met, Jessica looked completely different. She was scared and nervous. Linda began asking questions, and after much hesitation, Jessica told her story. It turned out Jessica had been forced into the scam. Her boyfriend, the leader of the group, had threatened her and made her do things she didn't want to do. Jessica admitted she regretted what had happened, but was afraid to go to the police because her boyfriend was still at large. Linda felt a mix of emotions: anger, pity, and relief. She realized Jessica had also been a victim. They agreed to meet again to discuss how to fix the situation. Linda and Jessica began working together. They decided to gather evidence against the scammers and hand it over to the police. Jessica revealed everything she knew: the names of the members, their meeting places, and their methods. Linda recorded her testimony and passed it on to her lawyer. A few weeks later, the police conducted a series of arrests. The scam group was dismantled, and its leader was arrested. Jessica agreed to testify in exchange for protection. Linda felt she had done something important. She began writing a book about her experience to warn others about the dangers of such situations. Her story attracted the attention of publishers, and soon she signed a contract. Meanwhile, Mark was serving his sentence in prison. He learned that Linda and Jessica were working together and was amazed. He wrote Linda a letter, admitting he was proud of her and regretted his mistakes. Linda replied that she forgave him, but their relationship would never be the same. A few months later, Mark was released early for good behavior. He returned to Chicago, where he started a new life. He got a job at a construction company and began attending support groups for former inmates. Mark and Linda occasionally met to discuss their lives. They remained friends, but understood their paths had diverged. Linda continued writing and helping other victims of scams, while Mark tried to find his place in the world. Mark and Linda's story became a lesson for many. It showed how important it is to be cautious in one's decisions and how easily life can be destroyed. But it also showed that even after the darkest times, light can be found. Linda published her book, which became a bestseller. She began giving lectures and helping others who faced similar problems. Mark found new love and started building a new family. Jessica got a second chance. She began a new life, far from her past, and tried to forget what had happened. Their stories intertwined in a complex pattern, but each of them found their own path to healing and happiness.